So we're going to conclude our introductory tour of the workspace by looking at what's contained in the left hand side of the screen. Now here we've got something called the browser, and the browser contains all of the information that's being referenced in the model that's on the screen. And there's a couple of things to really take away from this introduction in terms of the browser. At the very top you'll see the name of the file, and below that some document settings. But what you'll see is there are a number of folders in the browser, and each one of those folders can be expanded by just clicking that small arrow down on the left hand side of it. So now you can see what lives in each one of these folders. So these small arrows expand those folders so that you can see what's contained within them. And then the second thing to notice is there's this light bulb system going on against each of these entities, and the yellow light bulb indicates that that entity is actually visible in the workspace, and if the light bulb's blue, as it is down here, then that means that it's been suppressed and it's not currently showing in the workspace. So I can turn off and on these individual parts of the torch, in this case, by clicking the light bulb on and off. Similarly with all of these sketches, at the moment these are all turned off. Generally, once you've created a sketch, you don't want it interfering with the model, so generally you normally only have one sketch at a time visible on the screen. Maybe a couple of times you may have two where one is referencing the other, but very often you'll need your sketches turned off. So that's the key thing to take away from the browser, this expand button here on the left hand side, and this light bulb system to turn things on and off. So now we're almost back right at the very beginning where we started, and we've got this area called model. And when you click on model, it actually expands a drop down menu that contains all of the different workspaces that you can access in Fusion 360, and we'll be using some of these as we go forward with our modeling. So model is generally the one that you go into first, because that's where you're going to start creating your model. Once you've done that, you can generally then use things like render, animation, simulation, setup for machining under CAM, and create 2D drawings under the drawing option. You've also got a couple of options here called sheet metal and patch, which you can go into directly and do things straight away. But what you'll notice is if I go into render, each one of these workspaces has got this ribbon of tools running across the top. And the general rule of thumb to take away from this, and we'll reinforce this in the other videos, is that you generally move from left to right as you create your model. So you generally start off by using icons on the left hand end of this ribbon, and as your model takes shape you gradually start to use more and more of the tools as you move across. What you'll notice is if I switch to a different workspace, for instance if I switch to the render workspace, you'll see this ribbon of tools changes. So in this case in render it's much shorter, the tools look much different, but generally the workflow remains the same. You'll generally in render start at this left hand side, work through all of these different tools and finish up to create your final render on the right hand end of that particular ribbon. So that's the thing to take away here. This is where you select the workspace to do whatever it is that you want to do on your model, whether it be create it in the first place or then do some other downstream work on it, and also take away the fact that this ribbon here changes with each workspace, but when it does change, the general rule of thumb where you move from left to right on this ribbon remains in all of the workspaces. So it's pretty uniform right the way across the use of Fusion 360. So that's pretty much the final part of this tour. One last thing is you'll notice that each of your designs is held in a different tab. So this is the same way as it would be in maybe a browser, and at any point if you do want to raise a new design, the really quick way of doing that is hit that small plus, which will add a new tab with a clean screen where you can start your design. So that concludes the introductory tour of Fusion 360. We can now get on and start doing some modeling on our project.